from like a design standpoint, what is your favorite monster? And as a dungeon master, how do you run them? Like, why do you enjoy using that monster? It can be any monster in D&D.
Well, I think the honorable mention here is dragons.
Everyone likes running a dragon.
They're in the name, and I think that, for me, I'm always like, oh, if there's going to be a dragon, it has to be a moment.
Yeah.
But I think some of my favorite monsters in D&D are the ones that are unique to D&D. The ones that came out from like a weird little story or a game of telephone from an old mythology book, like the Modrons, for example. They have that story behind them that they're shaped the way they are because they look like dice, and somebody saw the dice and they were like, this should be a creature. Let's make this. They look weird. They have that little fleshy face to them while also being they make you uncomfortable, and they're fun to play. But I think, the Beholder, the Displacer Beast, I think the creatures that are uniquely D&D are often my favorite. I also have a soft spot for giants because I think that's so classic fantasy. I was never a tall child. and there's something admirable about being a very big creature. But I think just the wonder of fantasy, of hearing something stomping in such a way that trees split as this thing moves through a forest. You can feel the ground rumbling. When they talk, their breath is like gusts of wind. They have lungs the sizes of barrels. And I think there's something literally larger than life there that is awesome and admirable. And I think a lot of cultures have a giant of their own. That there's so many different ways to play a giant, that they don't have to just be a big cyclops. They might be a noble. They might not like fighting. They might carry a stack of books. Each book is the size of your house. And I think it's just fun to think, like that old nursery rhyme of the woman that lives in the shoe. Like,
right.
Whose shoe is that? Yeah. Like, where did you get this shoe? And like, when everything, I lived in Texas for a while. Everything's bigger in Texas, but nothing is as big as a giant, except maybe Big Tex.
Giants are, I love giants for all the same reasons. Like, it's kind of like everyone can kind of like instantly click in when you hear the stomping, right? Or the deeper voice you can use when you're role playing one. But like also they have items on them that are just bigger. They may have a tankard that, if it falls, you're trapped. Like you're in prison, and they may not even be aware of your existence. Like it kind of like puts things in an interesting perspective of like, you are now an ant.
Yes. Yeah.
And you may not matter. No. And you are amongst these giants.
Yeah, I love it. And it's also like there's something familiar there. I love playing with new players. I ran a game for my dad a few years back, and it was interesting. Some of us who've been playing this game so long, we're so steeped in things, we're looking for, where's the next turn? How are we going to turn something on its head? What's the twist? But for a new player, everything is new here. Yeah. Like when they see a Displacer Beast, they're like, "Oh, that's weird. That cat has 6 legs." And then it's like blurry, and they're like, "Why is it blurry though? Yeah. What's happening here?" And you can surprise them a lot easier. But I think giants are fun because there's something familiar there, where it's easier to slowly walk someone down the D&D path of like, oh, here's something familiar that you're gonna know.
Yeah.
You know fantasy, you know what a giant is, and then suddenly you're looking at a beholder and it's floating and it has like all these eyes, and they're like, what is happening?
Yeah. That's a good point. Like everyone can understand dragons. Like that's such a part of so many different cultures, and then giants are very much in the same way. You can imagine a big person.
Yes.
There's a lot of fun to be had.
I feel like somebody explained it to me once when like there was like a little kid, and they like, I don't know if they stubbed their toe or they scratched their knee or something, and they were crying, and I remember, or maybe it was something I read online, but somebody said something like, when a child is happy or a child cries, it is literally the worst thing that has ever happened to them at that point. Like, they had never experienced that before. That joy they feel is the first time they've ever experienced that thing. When they try a new fruit, they've never had that fruit before. And I think like a lot of us in like nerddom are like, I wish I could go back and watch this thing for the first time. And new players are like children in that regard. Like, the first time they see that creature is the first time they're ever going to see that creature. And every time you give them that first you could potentially burn a memory, in their mind in regards to this game. I still remember one of the first creatures that we ever fought in D&D was the Thrycreen.
Thrycreen, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. And when I think of a Thrycreen, I think of this adventure that my DM ran in Utah, where I was in a jungle, and I think of Thrycreen as jungle people, but they're not from jungles. They're like often in like Dark Sun and stuff. But that's the one that's in my memory. So.
And that's kind of the responsibility of being a good dungeon master. Is this maybe someone's first time playing?
Yeah.
And it's that is an awesome responsibility. You want them to have a good time. How do you teach people to dungeon master?
You teach through seeing. I think, blessed be the dungeon masters that have never played or have only played a couple times, like who grab a book or watch a video or just want to learn on their own and then put a group together. But I think oftentimes the best way to teach a dungeon master how to play is to DM for them and then ask them to take the reins for a one shot. So, many times it can give your DM a break. You run a one shot or you continue the story for a session, run a side quest, do a beach episode or a shopping episode or something, and have fun. But I mean, DMing is rewarding and enjoyable, and you don't have to know everything, and nobody knows everything. So a lot of it is just giving it a chance, feeling it out with that group. Run things that are already written makes it a lot easier when there's an answer. When you're not making everything up, you might be running a starter set or a book or something that we create. You can improvise within that box rather than having to improvise everything that they could possibly get their hands on. So.